Good evening. Thanks for being here. I'm Troy Charles. Here are your top stories. 5 people were sent to hospital Friday evening with non-life-threatening injuries after a 2-vehicle collision on the Thunder Bay Expressway, which closed the highway for about an hour. Police have arrested and charged the driver of one of the vehicles for impaired driving. Corey Nordstrom has more.
This bottle placed on the roof of one of the vehicles is telling of what may have caused the accident. Acting Sergeant David White with Thunder Bay OPP says the driver of that vehicle was arrested, suspected of driving under the influence of alcohol. White explains how the incident came to be.
Tonight we had 2 vehicles southbound from John towards Oliver Road intersection on the Thunder Bay Expressway. One vehicle was traveling at a high rate of speed and rear-ended the vehicle in front of it, causing significant damage to both vehicles.
Each of the 2 involved vehicles had 2 occupants. All 4 were taken to hospital with unknown injuries. A 5th person whose vehicle was struck by debris from the impact was also taken to hospital as a precaution. White says the investigation into the cause of the accident is still brand new, but he gives this piece of advice to motorists.
Alcohol and driving never mix, especially when there's high traffic volume. And the one vehicle that was hit did nothing wrong. Not to play blame on them, but with distance and being aware of your surroundings, it will prevent collateral damage and other vehicles from being involved.
Corey Nordstrom, TBC News.
And following up on that accident, addition to impaired driving, the accused is charged with having a blood alcohol concentration of 0.08 and operation causing bodily harm. Her vehicle was impounded by police and she is now scheduled to appear in court on October 20th. The district's medical officer of health says she's been hearing concerns about some 5-day wait times to receive COVID-19 test results. Dr. Janet DeMille says a 48-hour turnaround time is a key measure for responding to the pandemic, as a quicker positive test can be managed and a negative result allows people to return to work. DeMille says smaller communities around the district have some valid concerns. She's hoping those wait times will come down.
What we want is sort of an under 2-day or 48-hour turnaround time from when the sample is collected, and that's kind of hard to achieve in many ways with our distances and some of our challenges up here, but we should be aiming for that as much as possible. And I know for like a community like Marathon, it was the average turnaround time was around 4 or 5 days. Now some of them, on priority individuals, like individuals in hospital, were coming back quickly because they were prioritized, but that also means that there were some that were considerably longer, and that really has an impact, right? And people have to stay at home. If they're a healthcare worker, they can't go to work. If they're a teacher, they won't be able to go to work until that test result comes back, and then it's negative. So it does have implications. So, and I know that there's a lot of work being done provincially to improve that turnaround time, but an average turnaround time of 5 days is not acceptable as we, look to properly navigate this pandemic.
The Canadian Union of Public Employees is going on tour calling for support and calling out members of the Ford government regarding Bill 195. Union leaders say the bill, which was passed in July, is a union-busting tactic that strips members of their rights. The first rallies were held this week here in the Northwest at the constituency offices of the only northern member of the Ford cabinet, Greg Rickford. Adam Riley was there and filed this report.
This government is shameful. Very, very shameful in the way they treated healthcare workers right across the province.
Members of the Canadian Union of Public Employees rallied out front of Kenora Rainy River MPP Greg Rickford's Kenora office Thursday, expressing their anger at the Ford government following the passing of Bill 195, which on one hand declared the COVID emergency over, but continued to suppress the rights of members for up to a period of 3 years, including the right to stop shift switches, facility transfers, and the right to parental leave.
We went from heroes to zeros in one stroke of the pen.
Judy Bain is a registered practical nurse at the Lake of the Woods District Hospital and the president of Local 1781, which represents RPNs in the area. She says while her employer hasn't used elements of Bill 195, she knows other union members across the province have not been so lucky and calls everything Premier Doug Ford has done a a political act.
He really doesn't care about us. We really feel it was all political. It was a feel-good moment, and you know, it was great to see the public come on board, and the public still supports us tremendously, but we don't have a government that supports us, and that's quite clear.
And so it's a tiny tribute for the government to, on the one hand, say that these workers are heroic heroines, heroes, have made a heroic contribution, but on the other hand, their reward for that is the permanent suspension of any right that matters in their workplace.
In his address to members, Ontario Council of Hospital Unions of CUPE President Michael Hurley says it was imperative to start in Greg Rickford's riding due to his status within the Ford government, and notes they have garnered a lot of support since Bill 195 was passed.
These rallies have been endorsed by the Ontario Federation of Labour and the Labour Councils. Other unions are participating in them. We've added 3 rallies since we announced them, and I think you're going to see the concept grow.
A second rally was held on Friday in Fort Francis, and CUPE members will be in Thunder Bay on September 1st, calling on opposition MPPs for support. Adam Riley, TBT News.
The city's Botanical Conservatory has been inches from the chopping block for years now, and the latest nudge prompted one Thunder Bay local to take a stand. Once again, here's Corey Nordstrom with more on a documentary recently made to let residents know the impact and history of the 52-year-old green space.
The Grand Thornton Services Review. I'm a part of the Friends of the Conservatory Facebook page, and as soon as they started posting in there what that service review sort of entailed, I knew that the Friends of the Conservatory were looking at lobbying against this kind of thing.
So from July until recently, Torin Gannell worked to create a documentary showing what the conservatory is for the people of Thunder Bay, instead of the funding drain many think it is.
I think the conservatory is really important for people who don't necessarily have the funds to travel. It's a place you can go at any time of the year and experience South America and experience different climates. And I think it's also great that it's a free public space in our community. You don't necessarily have to pay anything to go there. You're supposed to make a donation, but it's something anybody can go to at any time.
But in order for the documentary to have merit, he needed to find those who were for and against the idea of cutting its funding, with the real struggle being those in opposition of the city-run facility.
I don't see the will around the council table, either with this council or past council, to make anything happen.
How does it make you feel when someone says the conservatory should be shut down because it doesn't make enough money to pay for itself?
I feel that that's a perfectly valid opinion, and it's their opinion.
Gannell also spoke with an array of locals and employees from the conservatory, but the goal was to make something to teach those who may have never been to the Dease Street location.
It's something that you can watch, you can absorb all the information, and then you make your own decision about it. I'm not trying to make anybody change their mind or convince them in any way. I hope that they will see this information from an unbiased way and then make their own decision going forward.
The 45-minute documentary titled A Promise Unfulfilled can be seen on YouTube through the Friends of the Thunder Bay Conservatory social media pages. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
Student Transportation Services of Thunder Bay held their annual First Rider program today. Young bus riders got their first experience on a school bus, while parents got their initial glimpse of some of the changes heading into the school year. Avery McCrae reports.
27 years later, the First Rider program hosted by Student Transportation Services of Thunder Bay is still helping children prepare for riding the school bus to and from school, as well as field trips. For many kids, it's their first time ever on a school bus, and parents believe it's important to get their kids used to the bus before school begins.
I wanted them to see what the buses were going to be like coming into the school year, and then kind of like give them an idea of what it would be like getting on the bus anyway.
Definitely help her feel more comfortable getting onto the school bus and knowing that it's not something to be afraid of, and it'll be a fun experience.
Every half hour between 10 and 1:30, groups of 40 students to be took their first steps on the bus, with 20 students per bus to promote social distancing. Buses are cleaned in between sessions, with many wearing masks, despite them only being required for grades 4 through 12. On average, the program sees 450 kids step onto the bus for the first time, but with some parents pulling their kids out of school and others not sending their kids on transit due to COVID-19, only 245 children were signed up for the program this year. With less kids on the bus, Student Transportation Manager Craig Murphy says the service has kept busy with school beginning in just a week.
We've had a fair number of students come off the bus this year, and we're still working on the routes. Crunch time right now, so we're working a lot of late nights. Taking a nice break today for first rider, but we'll be right back at it tomorrow and then Monday mornings.
Among changes by the buses, seats will be assigned when kids return to class, and drivers will have screens to protect themselves and riders. The company will also be doing their best to ensure no bus has more than 50 kids per route. Murphy says they are doing everything they can to ensure student safety, but parents have a part to play.
We want them to make sure they clean and sanitize their hands before leaving home to board the bus with clean hands. The masks are obviously the big one, and it's upon the parents to make sure every day in the morning to assess their child to make sure they're not showing any symptoms of COVID, and not take any chances by sending them on the bus or sending them to school with any symptoms.
Avery McRae, TBT News.
Well, we got Mike Mohorevich on the desk. And Mike, two of the major sports leagues had a hiatus for, social justice issues on the forefront, but we're back playing sports today.
Both the NBA and the NHL returning today, so, it's nice to have them back, but of course they left for a good cause. We got those highlights after the break.